Hello, welcome to season 4, episode 11 of Lawfully Chaotic. By the way, Jason, shoot the shit. I got that just the split second after I clicked on. Good one. Anyway, welcome to episode 11. Thanks for joining us. Andy, you win. You were in chat, on both.
At the same
here
time.
Twitch. Yeah. Colin, also, thanks for joining us. Welcome to anybody else who jumps in or is watching afterwards,
Or listening afterwards.
or listening. Yeah, that's right. We're hoping to have Josh Roanoke on, who is the creator of an RPG called Grimoires of the Unseen, which I really know nothing about. I took a very quick look at it, but it looks very intriguing. Really cool. Almost kind of, I mean, it's fantasy, but I almost got like this kind of Cthulhu meets 14th century Europe type vibe.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about that because even if he doesn't know, we'll at least talk about the game. Because
so
the thing I want to talk about is the clever way that he did one of the things that we have talked about for a long time, which is a skill point system.
Okay.
And I feel like a skill point system that he implemented here is pretty simple, but adds a lot of depth to the ability of your character. It's like developing characters in Grimoires the Unseen is.
So we're just gonna jump right in.
Oh shit! Sorry. Yeah, I was getting lost in.
I know you're so excited. Anyway, hopefully Josh can join us. And I definitely want to hear about this. This is going to be a lot on you tonight because, like I said, I want to learn about this game because it looks awesome.
Yeah.
And I specifically did not want to delve too deeply in because I wanted to hear it from Josh. So anyway,
well, and we had a great, and to preface, my Monday night group had a 0 session with 3 of the players, and they all built characters, and they had a blast. One of them is a sea captain, who's a merchant sea captain. Another one is a 15-year-old assassin who has a demon trapped in their body, and the other player, I think she is she's a nun alchemist who secretly ninjas demons. So they all got to play, build these very elaborate, different type. I can't wait to talk about his character development because I see so much opportunity for the skill point system and the background system that he's using to kind of really add some flavor and some permutations of what you can develop in the game.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, that's what we've been talking about for a couple of years now.
Yeah. Trying to not get locked into subclasses the getting locked into the primaries and then the subs, right? If you're a fighter, you do all of these things until your subclass is picked. And once you pick your subclass, you're kind of locked in. You know what I mean? You're locked in.
Yeah.
And you've got to play that route out, whether you want to or not. So,
oh my God.
We
do have another guest tonight. This is my dire wolf demon puppy, Winston. Say hello to Nerd World, Winston. He will absolutely, my wife is out. He will not fucking leave me alone. He's been biting my toes for the past 20 goddamn minutes.
Oh, he's a puppy. That's what they do.
I know that, but I mean,
they're designed to literally be. Well, yeah. Well, I mean, they're designed to be so cute that they won't starve to death. So that's kind of the point. That's their thing.
Oh, no way, Andy. Your sister's dog is named Winston. That's awesome. What kind of dog? Winston's a Westie. He's about 7 months old, right? And he comes from the 7th plane of hell.
So he elevates. Next month he'll be from the 8th plane of hell. After that, he'll be from the 9th plane.
2 whippets. Anyway, okay, so yeah, I want to hear all about this. Announcements. I don't think I have any new announcements from last week. Although I'll toot my own horn again, as I always do. I did get an email, a Critical Role email today, with the preview of the Solar Gardens board game, which I worked on for a number of months with one of the producers over at Darrington Press. So that is coming out in their shop very soon.
Very cool.
That's about it. That's all I got. You? Or you want to just get into the game?
I'll be putting the finishing touches on the website this month. It'll include a reviews page as well as adding some additional seats and tables. And I plan on, by the end of May, having all of my tables officially on my website. So
awesome.
I will be officially in business for myself. Considering all my, I pretty much want to, be a professional DM for maybe another 2 years, and then do my farmers market thing from that point on. So
we're still going to do the show, right?
Probably. I mean,
probably.
It depends. I mean, farmers markets are really popular on Thursdays, but luckily they're usually early in the afternoon. So
yeah,
because my plan is to be able to do about 8 farmers markets a month. Because you can average about $500 to $1,000 a market, depending on your depending on your available stock and what you're growing and what you're pulling out of the farmers market.
Yeah.
So,
is it once a week?
Usually
they're once.
Yeah.
Or do you do multiple markets?
I would do multiple. So right now there's 2 that we do to promote Callista's business. One is called Bertling Ranch, and the other one is the local Hemet Farmers Market, which is once a month.
Oh, okay.
And I think Bertling's Ranch is either once or twice a month, depending on the schedule. And one of the things I've noticed a lot in Southern California, like farmers markets are getting less about like produce and more about tchotchkes.
Oh my God, yeah.
Artsy-fartsy stuff. And
we have one that we go to
sense,
here.
Like, goat milk and soap and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But some of it is just stuff that you get at a Walmart and hang it up on a wire rack and think it's handmade. Some cases it is, but like for me, my favorite thing about when I used to go to the Temecula's farmers market is that there was actually food being sold. So you go in there and you spend $50 on like a month's worth of fresh produce.
Oh yeah,
and it's just crazy. Today I brought in 12 dozen eggs and about 50 pounds of lemons. Tomorrow will be 10 pounds of arugula and 5 pounds of mixed lettuce.
When life gives you 50 pounds of lemons.
And their tree does that every other month. We have a tree that does that every other month.
Holy shit.
Crazy
awesome.
Out here. Things grow like crazy. Once the steady heat gets here, things just grow like crazy out here.
Awesome.
Because we don't get that nonsense white shit all over the place.
I know.
Snow.
Yeah, by the way, it was 75 degrees here for most of the day, and then I took the dog out at around 4:00 and it was 47. No fucking joke. I'm walking outside in shorts and t-shirt. I'm like, what the fuck happened? It was like 15 minutes. This is what happens in Chicago. You can drop like 25 degrees in 15 minutes. That's just crazy.
That's hysterical. So that's what I got on my plans to finalize the website this month so I can roll everything over to the website and maybe open. I do plan on putting up a Star Wars table, and I plan on putting up a Daggerheart table as soon as I get the Daggerheart rules.
Yeah. All right, cool. Let's I want to hear about this game. So hopefully Josh can jump on, but if not,
he is an on-call employee for an agency. So it's possible either he got called away at the last moment and could not ping me. It's also possible we could have got the dates mixed up. That could happen.
Well, that's on you.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I was pretty sure I told him I wanted to do it the first Thursday after our zero session for character development because I wanted him
if that's the case, then I just banked a full month of you not making fun of me for forgetting to do shit or not researching anything or anything.
That's
like that.
fair, except I won't remember not to make fun of you, and I'll continue to make fun of you. So it's all good. So when
All right.
I actually stumbled upon across Josh, I every now and then I like.
So is there a website? I've been looking and all I
No,
can find was Facebook.
Yeah, he only has a Facebook site right now.
Okay. Is this game? Let me first just start with a couple questions. Is this game? When did he release this? Because I also saw is he working on?
It's not released yet.
He started working on this in 2023, right?
Right. He's still working on it. It's not released.
Oh, okay, okay.
I'm merely play testing it for him. So he's now beginning the process of having people play test it.
Okay.
That way he can start.
But it is a complete set of rules. I mean, he's pretty far into this.
It's pretty close to a complete set of rules. Mostly what he's got to flesh out now are some of those, we talked about doing a zine. And when I was explaining to him what a zine was, he's like, oh, that's really cool. That would work really well with the game. I said, yeah, because a zine could be a campaign, type of monsters, type of enemy character. You could put together a cool little zine that gave people more content to play with, or possibly a new profession, or possibly, a new social class. And that'll make sense in a moment because we'll talk about the character development. But yeah, he's close. I suspect he could probably get this thing out probably by next spring. But then he's got to struggle. Remember when we had Dungeon Master Mom on?
Game Master Mom.
Yeah. He's got to figure out how to sell the damn thing. Is he going to do it on a Kickstarter? I think he was thinking of the DMs Guild, doing it there.
Yeah.
Except their take is just so high. So he's now that he's wrapping it up, he's falling into that kind of pitfall of, okay, now that I'm almost done, but he's got an illustrator of, that he pays to do the illustrations.
Some of the illustrations I've seen are really fucking cool.
Aren't they neat? He also has a what do you call the people that proofer, as a proofer.
Yep.
So he's got someone who proofreads everything, and then he does the remaining work. So he's got a team of 3, himself and 2 other people. So he's taking it pretty seriously, and he's done a great. The page layouts look amazing. They really do look amazing.
Yeah.
You can tell that there's a lot of effort and detail put into what he's built so far. So.
I just want to put this up here while you're talking. So
his Facebook page. Yeah.
Just so someone can at least start to see some of the.
Well, and I think.
I mean that Krampus with the kid in the sack. That's fucking awesome.
It's awesome. Well, and one of the things I think we talked about too is that the reason why the art is so easy to use is a lot of the art is in the public domain now because it's based on 15th century. 14th century, artwork in publications and publications that are over a century old, which, has them fall out of, the spectrum of copyright. So they're easy to use. And like with most, with most AI things, you could take an image that's in the public space, public domain, drop it into an AI generator and have the AI kind of make a Cthulhu style image out of it for you.
Right.
If you're not a super creative type, which, we know I'm not. But here, so the intent of why are we looking at your Instagram page?
Hold on. Well, I want to make sure that we see both chats because I'm God damn it. Fucking production person.
Darn it.
Somebody please work for free for us. Jesus Christ. Hold on. I'm trying to get the Facebook cocksucker. All right. Are we seeing that now? Hold on. Nope, I pulled the wrong page again. Jesus Christ. We need one of those technical difficulty. I just wanted to get back to here. Okay.
There we go.
All right, so keep talking.
So Grimoire of the Unseen, you could tell it's a collision of Cthulhu, because he has a pretty like-minded, not similar, but like-minded perspective of the insanity effects of how insanity. But he also does it with things like luck and exhaustion, and just because you have it and you use it doesn't mean you don't suffer a penalty when you use it all. So there's a neat little interlay of that design on the character sheet. And he really does a excellent job of focusing on making the characters be the main purpose of the game. He really went in to a lot of depth.
That looks like AD&D,
right?
That looks like right out of the monster manual of
So there's definitely a style and a way that he's designed it. He's designed it to be played in 3 different ways. You could either play it as just a traditional narrative TTRPG, or you could play it as a horror, or you can play it in a heroic manner.
As a horror?
Horror.
Oh.
Jesus Christ, man. Your brain has been...
No, it's your fucking accent. A horror. It's horror.
So he does
if you're from the East Coast, it's horror.
Leave it on that screen for a second, because this is one of the clever things that he's done. This is technically a template for the chase scene that he's created for the game.
Oh, that's cool.
I haven't been sold on that yet. I don't know if that's easy for narrative style yet, but
that's interesting, because that's really hard to do in D&D is chases and
other people, but for me it's not. So I don't know. I don't know how to use a template
for mortals.
For mere mortals. But what I do like how he did is he gets rid of hexes and squares. Everything is either near, far, distant. So those are the 3 ranges that he actually uses in combat: is near, far, and distant. The template for chase scenes are pursuers and escape. So there's a little bit of mechanical crunch that you can play for the purposes of a pursuit. But I'm just not sure if I'm sold on it yet, because it's kind of hard to focus on a template and then be narrative at the same time. To me, that feels hard, because narrative flows easier with descriptive and theater of the mind. And I don't know if slowing down for a template works for me. That could be a little weird, but
but it's an interesting way. I mean, if you look at it as, the template is just another tool for narrative play, rather than being constrained by it, let it support the narrative, but just be there to kind of help it along a bit. I mean, it's an interesting concept.
Yeah. I haven't fully. I've looked at it. We've experimented with it. I don't know if it's going to come up in the 4-part series that we're doing, but it might. If it seems like it makes sense, it might.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's a collision of Cthulhu, D&D, and what I would call historical fantasy.
Okay.
And he does what Candela Obscura did with the little insert. Just because it takes place during a certain period of time of history doesn't mean you can't play it as a fantasy. In other words, you can get rid of the obvious problems with medieval Europe, the obvious significantly cringy problems, and just focus on the backdrop and focus on the fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
Very similar to the Victorian setting that Candela Obscura uses, right? To give you the setting, but not with all the horrible cringe, tropes of that of the Victorian era, right? It's like it could be pretty bad historically, but
lots of horrors.
No, just lots of have and have nots, and
I know
place and misogyny and racism and stuff like that.
This is really interesting that he's got, for at least a couple of them, strength dex skills and strength charisma skills.
So there's actually
that's kind of cool to combine skills.
So there's
or combine
logic.
attributes for some skills.
Well, it gets even better than that because he's got a system called the blend skill system, which is pretty cool. But the way you build a character is really neat. So characters get they have a social class that they get to pick. He does have a step-by-step system, that you roll your attributes, you do all those things, right? But to me, the core of what was really fun with this is in chapters 1 through 4, he describes what he calls, the basics. But I'm going to jump ahead, and I want to talk about the really neat way that you could develop your character, and then talk about why the skill pool system that he's developed is really interesting. The other thing that it collides with is it's a DC 20 mechanic system.
Yeah.
And I think once again, this proves the point that the DC 20 system is here to stay. It's easy to use. It's easy to apply. You can apply it in many different ways. It's adaptable. It's a seamless transition from different styles of games. More and more games that are using it could easily have, you could feel like you're so familiar with it that trying out a new game won't be overly overwhelming. You'll be like, oh, the DC 20 system, that part I know, so and he uses advantage and disadvantage, uses things like perception and passive perception. So there's some nuggets of framework here that stick to like the core approaches to things. But what he does that's really interesting is you get to assign a social class. So you can be a noble, you be clergy, you could be a merchant and bourgeoisie, you could be an artisan. I'm getting feedback on you. I can hear myself talk, which means it's coming through your headset or your mic. How about now? Now it's gone.
Okay.
That was weird. You probably were Facebooking something. You hit a button again. Macs are like that. You breathe on them and they start misbehaving.
What did I tell you? You couldn't go 15 minutes without ripping on me, you man.
I'm not ripping on you. I'm ripping on your computer. It's very different.
It's a very personal thing to me. It's my life, man.
So you pick your social class, which is noble, clergy. You could be either noble, you could be clergy, you could be merchant and bourgeoisie, you could be artisan and craftsman, you could be a rural peasant, or you could be an urban peasant, right? So that's your social class. And once you pick your social class, you can then pick your profession. And your social class combined with your profession determines some predetermined skills that you already have. My favorite part about character creation that he brings back to the table, which has not been around for a long time, is he includes an age table. So your age determines how many skill points that you have.
Oh, that's cool.
Right? So
more skills, but then maybe your exhaustion goes quicker. Is there some kind of mechanic for that?
Yes. So like, for example, if your age range is 16 to 19, you get 10 skill points. You then get -2 to your strength because you're not really fully developed yet. But you get +2 to dex because you tend to be quicker.
Okay. That's awesome. I really like that.
And then you get 6 luck points.
Okay.
And then you get 3 exhaustion level points. And, as you use those, luck you can apply to rolls, or you can make the game master re-roll something by spending a luck. You could spend a luck for advantage. You can spend a luck for flavor. You could say, hey, GM, I want to spend a luck. And I want to spend my luck by trying to do this. And then you go, okay, that sounds cool. You can spend a luck try doing that. And then you can either apply a DC or not apply a DC. So
give me an example of another age range, like 40 to 50.
So for example, 50 to 59. You get 35 skill points.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
But you get -4 from strength because you're older.
Okay.
So it's -4 from strength or dex or endurance or charisma, but it's +2 in wisdom. So it's mimicking the idea that you're older, so you're wiser, but you're not quite as physically capable.
So everybody in the game, every fighter is 17 years old, and every wizard is like 67.
Well, and magic is not contemporary. Magic is very different.
Okay.
Magic is either occult magic, elemental magic, or divine magic, right?
Okay.
And it's very similar to Shadow Dark in the sense that you roll to cast. So when you perform your spell, you get a DC, and you have to roll to beat that DC as a spellcaster. And if you beat it, then your spell goes off.
Okay.
If you don't beat it, the spell doesn't go off. There are certain things that could cause you harm if you fail horribly.
So is that a replacement to spell slots?
Yes, there's no spell slots.
Oh, see, that is actually really cool. I like that.
Yeah, and Shadow Dark does that too. And if I could figure out a clever way to homebrew by getting rid of spell slots, I would do it, but it requires a whole new application of a mechanic for the purposes of casting, rolling a cast. So if you get rid of spell slots and you keep spell levels, how does that work? So
I don't think you can do it.
I think you can. It's just you got to figure out how to do it.
Yeah, but that is really cool. Where instead of slots, it's are you able to get the spell off or not?
That's so here really on the character sheet. So you see down in the skill section, all those skills that you get.
Yeah.
So based on your social class and based on your profession, determines how many base skill points you have. But if you take noble, you automatically get 5 skill points in like one of your primary attributes. So for a noble, it might be charisma, right? Or it might be dexterity, depending on your nobility, right? So if you pick noble, you automatically get 5 skill points in anything that is like a certain attribute.
So it's sounding to me like your social class, which let's say, that equates to your background in D&D somewhat.
Well, yeah. So your social class and your profession would equate to your background in D&D.
Right.
Yeah.
But it sounds like your social class, or let's just say background in this game, gives you different ways. So in D&D, it's very there's rails on it, right? Like, this is my background, so it basically dictates to you, well, these scores go up, this is the feat you get, these, choose from these few skills. So it's very narrow in terms of creating a unique character, in my opinion. All right. This sounds like it solves that, because rather than telling you what you can pick, it just changes how much resources you have to spend in those places.
Right.
Which I think is really cool. So you can be, a peasant, but still take skills like, illustration and forgery, or whatever, you know what I mean?
Right. Well, that's where you start talking about the permutations of what your capabilities are.
So yeah, this is much closer to what we've been talking about, or what I've been talking about, which is a completely open skill tree.
Right.
Yeah, I like that. I like this a lot.
So, for example, if you choose to be a noble, and as a noble you choose to be a rebel, so if you're a noble rebel, you can either choose strength or charisma as your primary.
Okay.
And depending on which one you choose as your primary, you automatically can pick any 5 skills related to charisma or strength, depending on which one you pick, and you can automatically make them novice skills.
All right.
Right. So that way, the combination of your social class and your profession has a huge impact on your starting point.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody also gets what's called prodigy skill. So you get to pick a skill that you're a prodigy in that's basically free at the beginning. But you want to pick that skill based on your attributes, based on the outcome of your social class and profession. So maybe you had a crazy Uncle Fester that taught you elemental magic.
Right.
So suddenly you're a prodigy in the mythology and lore because of your crazy uncle who taught you mythology and lore. That way it doesn't cost you anything to start there. That's considered your prodigious, your prodigy skill. And then you pick your 5 skill points based off of your social class and your profession. And then once you select what age you are, you then select the pool of skill points available to you from your age, and you pick whatever skills you want. There's nothing to lock you in to anything.
Yeah. And it looks like also that weapons are skill related rather than just attribute related.
Correct.
I like that
related.
rather than getting all weapons, all martial weapons.
Right.
Like, are you skilled with flails versus swords? Because they're two completely different, skills.
Right. So the cool thing is, you see how there's 4 bubbles?
Yes.
So if there's no bubble filled in, you still can try. You can still do the skill check, but it's at disadvantage.
Mm-hmm.
When you have 1 bubble filled in, you are considered a novice. When you have, let me get to the tree here. When you have, so no bubble is unskilled. You roll disadvantage.
Okay.
1 bubble is novice. You roll a single D20 when you do your skill check, and then add the applicable modifiers based on the skill. If you're a journeyman, you get to roll 2 D20 and pick the higher of the 2. If you're a master, you roll 3 D20 and pick the higher of the 3. And if you become legendary, you roll 4 D20 and pick the higher of the 4. So the cool thing about that is if you're making a skill check and it requires one of your legendary skills, but the condition gives you disadvantage, instead of rolling 4 dice, you roll 3 dice.
Nice.
Right. So
what's the checkbox? Is that for what you have, what skill you have?
Correct. So the checkbox is you check that box. Is that in your chat or my chat? That's in your chat. Can you delete that? You should be able to delete that.
How do you delete that?
I think because it's in your chat, there should be an option. Oh, it's.
Well, then I got to log into Twitch. So nobody wants to see me do this shit.
Oh God, I hate these fucking spammers.
Hey. Oh, what the fuck?
I have no idea. So a group just raided your YouTube channel from Avenue Studios. Oh, I know them. Oh, that's awesome. Thanks, guys. Thanks for raiding us. That's pretty cool. One of these days you'll have to learn YouTube and Twitch. One of these days. Hey, we just got 14 viewers from them. Don't be such
nice. No, but that first one was spam.
Yeah,
Boo.
Yeah, those fucking buy viewers.
Yeah. Okay, so what's the checkbox?
Okay, so the checkbox is you click that every time you use the skill, because you can only buy skill points in skills that you use. So it's designed.
Oh, so it's like the first time you use it, you check it off, and then you can start.
That way, when you earn some XP, you then spend your XP points on those skills that you actually use. So it actually encourages you to use skills, is what it does. You know how, like, on the D&D page, the D&D character sheet, it's all about, those poor lonely skills that sit at the bottom of the character sheet that never get used.
Yeah, totally.
This one actually, as you're building your social class and building your profession, and as you begin to do all the permutations of skills, you know, you're like, so it's really cool because you can be a, you can be a clergy abbot who's an assassin. You could, you can be,
Well, now I want to roll a new character.
Right? You could be a merchant bailiff who is secretly worshiping, the dark gods. It's like there's all of these very simple and applicable, permutations of what you can be within the game. That they're like, it was really fun watching the players on Monday build these characters because they really got it. They understood that, in 14th, 15th century medieval Europe, where this takes place, you're going to be within a certain amount of historical accuracy. So you get to play these interesting roles and parts, but they're being put together with the intent of fantasy play, right?
Yeah.
The imagination, the idea of magic in medieval times versus, all the, so while it has a little bit of a D&D vibe to it in some of its framework with the DC 20 and some of the attribute system, he really puts in a whole new skin of character creation that allows you to be more skill focused. That way, you feel like you're developing a character over time.
Yeah, totally.
Becoming more and more skillful in the art that you guys are putting together.
All this for me goes back to MERP, Middle Earth role playing.
Yeah, a little bit.
You know, that was a D100, which I would still like to explore. But that skill tree was a huge skill tree, and it was the same type of thing. It didn't matter if you were a wizard; you could be skilled with a sword.
For those of us that just joined us, we were supposed to have Josh Roanoke on, but there might have been a schedule mix-up. He is the creator, and he's the creator of this game called Grimoires of the Unseen. He's been working on it for about 3 years, and I started playtesting it for him. I also was doing some kind of review and rule mechanics review, and we had been working together for like 3 or 4 months on some nuances of help and nuances of review. On Monday of this week, we kicked off our 0 session with character creation on the characters. And then we're going to do a 4-part series. It's a little mini campaign, and it's based on the Gutenberg press. So it's actually ties into a historical point of time, but there will be investigating why, what's going on, why, and the campaign is called The Devil's Type.
Nice.
And
it reminds me of, go ahead, finish.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, it reminds me of, there was a Marvel series called 1602 where all the heroes were back in 1602.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Kind of like that, where it was factual, setting, but still like a fantasy.
Now, another thing that I think he does, which is becoming more popular too, is the hit point pool is very low. The hit point pool is based on your raw strength score.
Yeah.
So if your strength is 14, then you have 14 hit points. And that's all you ever have is 14 hit points.
I love that.
Right?
That's probably my biggest beef with D&D is it's no fun for me playing high level characters because, again, it's like, I got 100. No, it has nothing to do with math. It's the fact that, I'm 16th level. I've got 120 hit points. It's like, yeah, I can eat dragon fire for 2 rounds before I have to worry.
Not my dragons, but I'm glad to hear that.
You know what I'm saying, though.
I know.
You're not worried at all. It takes
the pucker factor diminishes when you have a giant hit point.
Absolutely. And I think the pucker factor, and we've talked about this also, the more you mature, at least. Well, no, I think it's fair to say that it is a trend, because you've noticed that people are starting to want to get a little bit away from the global level, like, tropey hero save the world thing,
right,
and rein it into a little bit smaller. And I'm finding as a player, I enjoy the same thing. Obviously, I like getting all the, the perks from new levels, but like I said before, beyond about 11th or 12th level, my fun factor actually for me, it's a bell curve, and it starts dropping again because the one thing, that I mean, so we just started this new campaign with Gary, okay, and we were fighting like 6 goblins at first level, and it was
a rough fight. It was a hard fight.
Absolutely, which is the way it should be, So anyway, that was a really long way of saying I really like the and they started this with Daggerheart, but I really like the fact that it's, the focus is on you have very little hit points, and it's more about dodging and armor and all of that shit.
Right.
Because no matter how legendary you get as a mortal being, you can't fall into lava and crawl out and shake it off.
Right.
You know what I mean?
So the cool thing is the hit point pool is low, which I think has become very popular. I mean, Candela Obscura doesn't really use that much of a hit point pool.
Right. Candela. They did it first in Candela, and then
Daggerheart, barely any hit point pool in Daggerheart as well. Just a lot of compares of wounds, and you get to use these formulas that are kind of interesting. He also has the for some reason it was not, where is it? Divine Favor. So he's included things like luck. He's included things elemental magic. Where is the vital stat? Fortitude. So there's fortitude, divine favor. He's
sanity, luck, and sanity.
Exhaustion. Yes. So sanity, luck, and exhaustion. And the cool thing is that you start off with a certain amount of points in all of these things. And as you use them, the number goes down, obviously. But there's a detriment if you hit 0. So if you actually use all your luck before a long rest, when your luck drops to 0, you have to roll on a table. And that roll determines some kind of bad outcome because you let your luck drop to 0.
Wow, did you see that arrow shot into that guy's eye that I just made? That was so lucky. Wham! Hit by a piano.
Yeah. Or, sanity, right? If you see something that triggers an event, you can lose sanity points as part of damage that you take. So even though the hit point pool is a number that's used for reduction of physical damage, a monster, a demonic monster that you interact with could cause you sanity points as well. He also created something called your dark secret and your phobia. So you create a dark secret about yourself, and you also create a phobia about yourself, which can be extrapolated from the tables. There are tables that he gives you that you can actually roll, or if the GM wants to, you can let them make up their own dark secret or phobia.
Can you develop those as you play?
It feels like it's a background sequence, so it feels like it's intended to be part of your background. In fact, your character really starts off as a professional within the idea of the Grimoires, the Unseen. Your background is meant to describe you as someone that's been already developing for years. And you just find yourself in a certain point of your character's life. And then that's why your character's evolved as it is. The other thing I like about this game is it really does help you feel like small campaigns have value. It's like you could play a 6-part campaign, or you could play an 8-part campaign, but then you could take a break from it and play another 4-part campaign where the characters fight. Like it could easily be anthology driven, and it's something that I've been really focusing on, is an anthology driven theme.
Are there levels?
I do not believe there are levels.
Nice.
What you do is when you earn XP, which earning XP for the group could be you complete a day's worth of play, everybody gets 1 XP point. And then it costs XP to raise your skills. So rather than
is it 1 for 1, or is it some kind of leveling chart?
It's a formula. So if you want to go from journeyman to master, it's like 6 points. If you want to go from master to legendary, it's like 8 points. If you want to go from unskilled to novice, it's like 2 points. If you want to go from so there's a whole formula built in.
Nice, but that's awesome that there's no levels, and
because the XP can be so low, and there's no level, you don't really have to worry about milestones. So at the end of a session, you can just look at the players and go, okay, everybody earned 2 XP today. And then the players go, oh, great.
And that's awesome. I mean, you could even use that as what I like about that is 2 things. 2 main things. One is, like you just said, you can actually use that as rewards for play also.
Yeah.
And this isn't really 2 things. It's kind of one thing, but the effect of not having levels is, it's you don't want to do that in D&D by more than maybe 1 level, because, if you've got a party of 3 9th level characters and 2 2nd level characters, how the fuck do you do that? With this, because it's not such a huge incremental jump, that could be a really cool narrative reward of that was an awesome attack that you just did. You described it wonderfully. You used luck. Take a point, a point of XP that you can apply towards, that weapon.
Yeah, and I think this once again is following a little bit of a newer trend in TTRPG development, which is simplification.
Yeah.
Of certain crunchy aspects that used to be overwhelming. I think one of the things that Josh expressed to me is he was frustrated with watching players in his D&D games look at their character sheet and go, well, there's 100 things here I think I can do. What do I do?
Yeah.
So where here, because it's all skill driven, and there's a few feats involved, but nothing overwhelming like in D&D. Yeah. But because this is skill driven, it kind of implies that the player can be super kind of flavorful in their dialogue now because of the way.
I thought you were going to say dumb.
No. Now, he also developed a rule called skill blend, where you can take a skill, 2 separate skills, divide them by 2, and whatever the average is rounded up becomes the skill check result that you need.
Interesting.
So the nice thing about that is that if you see someone developing a flavor of what they want to do, but you don't see a specific skill that really helps you resolve it, but you might see 2 skills that might help resolve it, you then just blend those 2 skills and say, okay, give me a DC 14 based on your wisdom plus 4.
That's cool.
And that off of that blended skill, it gives you that.
Are there different races, or is it just human?
It's just human.
Okay, so it does follow so it is definitely a fantasy skin on a known point in time, historical point in time. Okay.
Well, like a historical bracket, I would say, right? Because
yeah.
I know in one of our shows we talked about the upcoming Cthulhu Rome that comes out, I think, this year, where it's Cthulhu during the time of Rome, right? Which is anywhere from the founding of Rome all the way up to its fall. So it gives you a large breadth of historical fantasy to play with. And I feel like this kind of does the same thing. I think generally people think of the Middle Ages as everything pre-Renaissance, post-Viking. So you have this or post-Viking expansion, right? Once the Vikings were expanding and the collision of Europe at the time with the Vikings, the outcome of that eventually created this idea of the medieval period, which also includes, the Crusades and, and that's what's really fun, because you could dip into little bits of history that pre-exist and look for superstitions. Actual superstitions, and then you could take that superstition and develop fantasy off of it, which is kind of what a lot of original D&D did, and a lot of what old school Cthulhu did, right? They kind of took old interpretations of things, reinterpreted it for the purposes of the game, and then let the fantasy of the game kind of play out. So once again, the one of the big questions I had for him, and he had a great answer, which is written in the book. What do you do about the misogyny and the class system and the racism and all that?
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, well, just like any other fantasy game, you have to set aside a certain bit of reality to enjoy the potential fantasy. So,
yeah, of course.
Can you be a badass nun from Africa? Absolutely. If that's the character you want to play, that's the character you're going to play. The reality is in a fantasy bubble, you're playing within that bubble for the purposes of the fantasy, commingled with some of the cool historical reference that you might be pulling into the game as well. Because we're getting late on time, I want to talk about combat real quick, because combat is real quick. Literally combat lasts 10, 15 minutes, which means you can have multiple combats in a single session so that you can really feel that flavor of your character and it's not overwhelming.
Okay.
His combat is done in phases at first, where if you're at range, all the range resolves it first at the same time. But as soon as you're considered near, right? So once again, you don't have to worry about measurements. You don't have to worry about hexes. It's like exactly what Daggerheart did. Once you're considered near to each other, right? Combat is simultaneous. So everybody rolls. The bad guys roll. The good guys roll, and whoever survives is who survives the simultaneous combat.
Okay.
What that really does is it really allows surprise to have more value.
Yeah.
It really encourages those opportunities of surprise, because in his rules, if you gain surprise, you go first before they can do anything. So your outcome happens right away.
Okay.
But as soon as you're engaged in combat, because it's a skill-based system, it's all based on skill. The group with the better skill versus the group with the worst skill, initiative becomes pointless because it's all skill-based. So as you're fighting each other simultaneously, you may automatically kill the guy that you're faced off against. Guess what? He still gets a chance to hit you and do damage to you because it's a simultaneous attack.
Right.
He uses an action system. And his action system is based on the stance that you're in. If you're in a defensive stance, you get only so many action points. If you're in an aggressive stance, you get more action points. If you're in a neutral stance, you get minimal, like a medium amount of action or minimal action points. And each of those stances improves your armor class, right? Because if you're aggressive, you're being reckless. It's a reduction to your armor class. If you're being defensive,
really interesting.
Right? If you're being defensive, your armor class gets a bonus because you're being in a defensive posture.
And you can do that every turn or every round?
Turn. Yeah, every round. And if you're defensive, the risk reward is you have higher AC, but you have lower things you can do. So you have fewer action points.
That's interesting. That's really cool.
If you're super aggressive, you get to do a lot more things, but your armor class goes down because you're being super aggressive. Now, he calls it a physical condition. We've toyed with the idea of maybe calling it a mindset. Your mindset is either defensive, aggressive, or neutral. Therefore, it determines your available action points that you can use during your simultaneous round of combat.
Okay.
But ranged round of combat can resolve before you become near.
Right. So, which makes sense.
Yeah, right. So, like, if ranged combat is going on, it resolves itself, and then you declare everybody's near. And once everybody's near, then everybody's like spending all their action points within combat.
They're near only if they move into that.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
So it still I mean, obviously your movement still matters, but it's not the action economy of, okay, you get an action, a bonus action, a move. Right.
Right.
The reality is once you move into near, it's considered this like intense swirling melee, right?
Yeah.
So that I think he mentioned that he got that a little bit from Warhammer, because Warhammer 40K treats it that way. Once you're in base, It's just it's just this confusing, intense, swirling melee that's going on. So if you look at character development, you look at combat strategy, and you look at the narrative way you get to play in the fantasy of medieval era, it's Cthulhu D&D DC-20 core system with a very fast-paced combat, and it's a skill-based system. It's skills.
Yeah. It sounds really cool. I mean, this is probably actually the closest to a game that I would design so far that I've seen coming out.
It's simple. It's skill-based. There's no levels involved.
I would like to see it put on a pure fantasy standing.
Take its mechanic skin and put it on.
Yeah. Like and by that I mean basically just add different races and add how do you handle like racial abilities and maybe like for instance like barbarian's rage ability, like how I don't and I'm not saying that it should move away from the skill aspect, but just how to add that little bit on top of that so that you can emulate D&D a little bit more if you want
I think the difficulty is that if you were to add a third tier here, where would that third tier source come from? Like, if you're from the continent of Africa, what advantages and disadvantages do you get? And how do you avoid making it sound racially biased? You know what I mean?
Well, and I'm not talking about,
but
I don't think you could do it on, set in our history for that very reason.
Right. It would have to be pure fan. No, I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
But I think the reason why he's stuck in a 2-tier compendium system is because it's the only 2 tiers that you can really play with in a historical.
I totally get that. Yeah. So it would have to kind
I
of
was thinking the same thing, and I think that's why he puts a heavy emphasis on age.
Yeah.
Because age kind of feels like the 3rd tier, right? You've got your noble, you got your class.
Yeah.
You got your profession, and then you got your age. So once again, it's the
and I like the way
typically
keeps...
systems with trifectas do pretty well.
Yeah,
I
do like the way that those things don't really change the mechanics like rage or smite, but rather just again allow you to spend your resources in a different way.
Yes.
Like this, you're older, you get less of this and more of this. You're younger, you get more of this and less of that.
He comes really close to implementing an AP system, but what he does instead, he gives the characters the opportunity to either, if you're aggressive, you get 10 action points.
Yeah.
If you're defensive, you get like 4 action points.
Yeah.
If you're in the middle, you get like 6 action points.
Yeah.
And he brings in the mechanics of shooting an arrow. Like it takes 4 action points to shoot an arrow. 1, 2.
Oh, so it's not like an attack is 1 action point, casting spell is 2. It's like specific, like a bow is more than attacking with a sword.
Correct. Like he actually flavors the intent of the mechanics of the activity.
Yeah. No, this is really, really cool. Like I said, I don't know that I would make it a whole 3rd tier, but maybe just sitting on top of these would be like the different.
I think that's where the zines come into play. I really hope he runs with the idea of the zines because I actually like the Shadow Dark zines more than I like Shadow Dark. And it's not that I should rephrase that. It's not that I dislike the game, but it's already a game I played for 20 years. Yeah. And the parts of it that I could borrow would be their magic system. I think Shadow Dark's magic system is, it's another roll to cast system, which I love. And I will be actively developing a non-spell slot D&D homebrew. Yeah. That really is the next major thing I want to get rid of. I want to get rid of those spell slots. I don't feel like they're really resident in narrative play anymore. I think for the flavor of narrative play and the importance of character development and the way characters want to develop, or the way players want to develop their characters, I really think spell slots have to go. They really do. So
yeah,
holy
I
shit.
spell slot. You're not going to get an argument from me.
We did it.
So we did do it. So a couple things. I'm really intrigued by this. This is very cool. Yeah. I mean, like I said, were I to design a game this is closer to what I have in my head than anything else I've seen so far. So this is awesome.
All right, Brian.
Hold on. Would you give me a minute? No, I was just going to say, I do think we should have Josh on still. Because I would like to talk to him now that we've got all this out of the way. I would like to talk to him about and I think a lot of people would be interested in the process that he's gone through. And what it takes to I want to make a game. So that would be really cool. So we will have Josh on.
Yeah, I know. At some point. We have Kirsten
next week.
Yep, next Thursday we've got Kirsten Kristen's. We have Kristen from Kristen's Epic Adventures on next Thursday. She's going to talk about her journey with D&D and what brought her to the the influencer space as well. Which I love hearing those stories. I think it's really intriguing to hear how people find their way not only to D&D, but suddenly have the passion to help other people find their way to D&D. I always find those stories amazing.
Yeah. So we will have Josh on again.
Yeah, we will have Josh on.
Yeah. So
I'm beginning to wonder if I just gave him the wrong date. Because he's usually spot on, and I might have fucked it up.
I told you, I just banked big time on you, pal. You can find me at RPG and Co on Instagram, and playrpgandco.com is the website. Check it out. That's it. Jason,
you can find me over at TTRPG Academy over at LinkedIn, or sorry, TTRPG. What's that? Not LinkedIn. Linktree. Sorry, Linktree. Over. I actually deleted my LinkedIn app and I had it on my brain. But yeah, you can find me over at Linktree at TTRPG Academy, or on YouTube, where all my socials are there as well.
Awesome.
Hey, Brian, play a game.
Yeah. Tell it.
Got you. Hey, Brian, tell a story.
Play a game.
Most importantly,
be kind.
Be kind. Good
night, everybody. Thank you all.